form, the candidates forum for the 2015 federal election. We're in the riding of Central Nova, as you well know. Although I don't imagine anybody's driven completely around Central Nova, maybe in the history of mankind, but definitely not during this campaign. There are so many back roads and back places, and I want to say back people, but that's not very polite. You know, there's so many out and out places, and probably so many different agendas and so many different ideas that are out there and present, that I think it is a wonderful thing to bring candidates together, to have a forum to exchange ideas. You know, how would candidates from one end of the riding understand some of those very subtle differences that might be here, or for us here, for those of you from Musquodobit or down the road toward the airport, to understand what might be on somebody's mind in Antigonish and in places further along. And before I give the rules and everything, I just want to say one thing, that I just have a tremendous admiration for all of these gentlemen. Tonight, for most people, the sport on top of mind is baseball. And we say sometimes in Nova Scotia that politics is a sport, a blood sport. When people decide to run, to put their name forward, they do something so fundamental and so good that it often gets ignored. You know, we rush into the election, we rush into the choice, we rush into finally a vote, and then everything moves on. And so much of the idealism, so much of the commitment, so much of the responsibility, so much of the heart of the democracy is forgotten kind of on the way by. So a night like tonight for me celebrates the heart of our democracy, which is candidacy and informed voters. Nothing can be more important than that, and one surely cannot exist without the other. So tonight, we're going to build on a tradition that's thousands of years old, often forgotten, but never forgotten in this part of the riding. And we're going to have a forum. We're going to share ideas and discussion. And I'm going to say in a tempered, thoughtful way, but that doesn't mean there aren't going to be differences of opinion. Let's hope we have them. Now, the way we're going to run this evening is very simple. The candidates have chosen a speaking order. And Ross Landy from the New Democrats is going to speak first. Alexander McKenzie, the independent candidate, second from the right down there, was going to speak second. David Hashi from the Green Party of Canada will speak third. And Sean Fraser from the Liberal Party of Canada will speak fourth. We're missing a candidate, and the candidate, of course, will be missing us. The way the evening will run is each of the candidates will have a 7 to 10 minute opening statement. We're not trying to be too firm all the time. I told them at 7, we won't be 7 minutes, we're not crying, 10 minutes we are crying. So we've got a time to... No, yeah, here's the timekeeper, so barbell. After everybody's had a chance for a statement, we've got 3 questions that we're going to pose to each of the candidates. They've all been apprised of the themes of the questions so that they can do a little bit of preparation, and that's a good thing. We're not trying to surprise anybody and, you know, catch them with a bad answer, although I always thought it was a bit of wisdom when somebody said, well, I don't know the answer, but, you know, I'll look it up, and I've got people that can help me find it. And then after and they'll have 2 minutes to answer those, and we're going to be fairly strict on the 2 minutes there. And then after that, we're going to go to open mic from the floor. And just as a matter of how we're going to operate the open mic when we get there, could you please wait for the mic to come around? We've got a portable mic, and it'll be brought around to you, so if you just wave or catch my eye or somebody's eye who has the mic, just wait for that. And the reason we're asking you to do that is a little bit of electronic confusion between these microphones and the CPAC microphones. And So just wait till you get the mic. And I'll say one thing as the moderator, I'll say, sometimes when you get that mic, you might get like me sometimes, you get a mic in your hand and you just, maybe now I'm doing it. You just get on that roll and you can't get stopped. But the thing is, ask a question. We want to hear from these gentlemen. And I'm going to try and, if you direct a question to somebody in that time period, they'll go first, and then I'm going to try and, just move the order around a little bit. And also, if there is a point of personal privilege, or if there's a point that's made, and you feel as a candidate that you really need to rebut something very specific that has been said, just show me your hand and we'll have that happen. Because when you've got a speaking order and you're last, and you're first, and all of a sudden the fourth person or third person is saying something that's just, to your mind anyway, just unfair or too personal or whatever, you should have a chance to just correct that, to balance the scale. So we'll do that. I don't see myself as a heavy-handed chairman this evening. The idea is to hear from people. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ross Landry, the NDP candidate for Central.
Thank you very much, John, and I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening, and Dr. Lawson for organizing this event. It's great to be in Middle Musquodobit, and this is an historic election that's coming up. I am thrilled to be and honored to be the NDP representative for Central Nova, and I believe that my 35 years of law enforcement, 34 of them with the RCMP, my academic studies in law, education, criminology, Native studies, and conflict resolution, and my term in government as MLA for Pictou Centre and Attorney General and Justice Minister for Nova Scotia have thoroughly prepared me for the job to represent you in Ottawa as your MP. During my career as an RCMP officer, I had many opportunities to observe the frailties of our society. I also saw firsthand how traditional knee-jerk reactions fail to address the root causes of our social problems and treat people with the basic respect, dignity, and compassion they deserve. During my time in government, I led the effort to bring in some significant legislation and programs, in particular the Transgender Persons Protection Act, Canada's first ever law to protect victims of cyberbullying, the mental health court, so struggling individuals in need of help can get the help that they need. As a cabinet minister, I also participated in a host of other positive initiatives that people sometimes forget. For example, opening up the first collaborative emergency center in Canada, increasing the age for dental health from 10 to 13 years of age so everyone would have free care, waiving the cost of ambulance service for seniors or people with low income, increasing the minimum wage 4 years in a row, reducing the small business tax by 40% to help create jobs in our economy, improve the film tax credit, and we see what's happened to that. We opened nearly 1,000 new beds, care beds across the province, and we increased benefits for seniors. We invested in transition houses and women's centers. We also extended the moratorium on the Georges Bank. These steps reflect the kinds of values and priorities that the NDP hold. They're just a few of the things that our NDP government did, and for which I'm very proud of. But I'd like to talk tonight about the most significant issue that led to my decision to return to politics, and that was with Stephen Harper's determined assault against Canada's hard-won democratic principles, rights, and freedoms. I somewhat have to wonder if the TPP may be an influence as to why the Conservative candidate didn't bother to show tonight. It's not the first time during this election when we had debates. I find it somewhat disappointing and a lack of respect in the process. That's just my personal opinion. The list goes on for what the Conservatives have done in our society to make it a a non-fair place to live. For example, the draconian bill C-51 threatens the privacy and our democracy. Voter suppression through Unfair Elections Act. Extended up omnibus bills to put forth legislation. Parole Parliament. Withdraw NGOs where people have a disagreement with the Conservative Party's policy. Take funding away from women's organizations and the status of women. Put the muzzle on our scientists if they don't have same values and perspectives that the Conservative Party has. Canceling the long-form census. Political attacks in the Supreme Court. Refusing to meet provincial premiers. Concentrating more and more power in the Premier's office. And I could go on and go on. Our number one goal is to stop Stephen Harper. So say goodbye to Mr. Harper, and in Central Nova that can be done, and by voting NDP, that will happen. Here in Central Nova, the NDP has finished ahead of the Liberals in every election since 2004. After Peter MacKay, the NDP has traditionally been the top choice in this riding. Federally, we were the official opposition in 95 seats in the House of Commons. The Liberals have 36 seats and would need to make up over 100 seats to unseat Harper. Canadians want to see Harper gone. It's obvious on the doorsteps. And yet the Harper policies are all policies that the Liberals support. Justin Trudeau has closed ranks with Mr. Harper on Bill C-51. He's called opponents of C-51 divisive fearmongers, opponents like Amnesty International, the UN's Human Rights Committee, 4 former prime ministers, 5 Supreme Court justices, and a vast majority of Canadians. On climate change, Justin Trudeau has joined Stephen Harper in rejecting federal carbon caps, even as our coastlines are battered by ever more powerful storms, and our scientists warn that action needs to be taken now. On handouts to large corporations, Justin Trudeau stands firmly beside Stephen Harper. Even as large corporations amass hundreds of billions of dollars in offshore tax havens, Justin Trudeau and Stephen Harper will not ask them to pay a penny more. This is exactly how we end up with the rich getting richer and the poor and middle class getting poorer, by successive Liberal and Conservative governments in Canada siding with big corporations. And now Mr. Trudeau has said he will add even more debt for Canadian taxpayers. Time and time again, on the issues that really matter, Trudeau and Harper stand on the one side, and the NDP and Canadian public stand on the other. The NDP will not prop up a Stephen Harper government. An NDP government will repeal C-51, will bring back jobs and kickstart our local economy by lowering taxes on small business, giving incentives for green energy and innovation in manufacturing. Through an infrastructure plan to create 54,000 new construction jobs, through a forestry plan to create 2,500 jobs across the country, through an agricultural plan to protect supply management and provide farmers with support that they need to thrive. We will finally take action, real action on climate change. We'll put in federal carbon caps to drive greenhouse down, end fossil fuel subsidies and put that money into green energy, go back to the Paris Climate Change Conference as climate leaders and restore Canada's international standing and reputation. We will bring in a fair voting system in our first term, so every vote counts. The era of worrying about vote splitting and strategic voting is over. The NDP is not afraid of a fair playing field. By the way, for everyone who wants to see more Green members in Parliament, if we had had a proportional representation system in 2011, the Greens would have 14 seats today. The NDP is the only major party committed to bringing in proportional representation. We will not be bound by secretive and politically potentially devastating trans-Pacific partnerships, trade deals like the TPP. This deal has been criticized by everyone from Dairy Farmers of Canada, the Internet's rights groups, Doctors Without Borders, the Sahara Club, and Hillary Clinton, presidential candidate of the United States. The TPP could threaten our agriculture supply management system and drastically increase the prices of life-saving medication. And did you know that the TPP could establish secret tribunals in which private multinational corporations can sue sovereign countries for lost profits and force governments to weaken environmental and health standards. It's just not right. Mr. Harper has signed the TPP in secret during an election and with no mandate from Canadians. Mr. Trudeau is now praising the TPP for opening up markets and promises to hold consultations on it. Tom Hare has been clear. The NDP will not be bound by this dangerous agreement. We will do all this and much, much more, like implementing a $15 an hour federal minimum wage, $15 a day universal child care, a national pharmacare program, and restoring our neglected healthcare system. This election is a historic opportunity. After about 150 years of mismanagement and broken promises from the traditional ruling parties, we can bring change to Ottawa. This time, you have a choice. I invite you to join us in the movement for change. Let's replace fear and division with hope and optimism. We can get the change we need. Don't let them tell you it can't be done. Please vote NDP on October 19th, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ross. I have a couple of people at the door, so maybe they're still out there talking. I don't think I introduced myself, did I? My name is John Tilley, and this building is a particular favorite of mine in Musquodobit. I taught school here for a long time, and I farm in this community. And there's a stage upstairs that I've acted on many times, and directed students and community members. And you know, buildings like this, places like this are important in every community, and you know, it keeps and the arts, of course, is critical in all of our lives. But enough about me. I just realized that I had forgotten to introduce myself. We're going to move on to Alexander McKenzie, independent candidate in Central Nova.
Thank you very much. Real pleased to be here. My name is Alexander James McKenzie, and I'm getting used to reintroducing myself. I used to have a big beard and lots of hair. A couple shots of chemo and all that. So I'm at a disadvantage because people don't know me anymore. The last time I shaved, my mother didn't even know me. But I'm getting used to it, and I got a good report, 100% remission. I'm very proud of him. I dropped out of high school to support my family at an early age. I was married since I was 17, and I've been self-employed for 30 years, and done all right there. But I started out like I worked on a farm when I was 14. 3 farmers passed me around and worked the summer, and I enjoyed the work. I loved the smell of the hay, and back then it was a horse and wagon. We had to build the hay and stuff. But the end of the summer, I got $16. Here at work. So I knew I wasn't going to make a fortune there, but greatest respect for farmers, and that's for sure. But anyway, I can't talk about what my party has done. I have to talk about myself and what I've done. I've been an activist now for decades, trying to get the federal government to address concerns that I have, and completely failed to get represented in Ottawa. So I've been like an activist. I've done things like I cut the carpet off the courtroom floor one time to unveil the truth because I needed more. I chopped up the road one time in an attempt to start a volunteer work project to clean up an environmental disaster at Boat Harbor. You probably heard about that. Also, when I was elected as a county councillor at the municipal level of government, roads are a provincial responsibility, but people kept saying, we gotta get the roads fixed, and my car's getting destroyed and smashed and potholes and all that stuff. So the kind of guy I am, I tend to take matters in my own hand. If I can't get those responsible for doing a job, I volunteer to do it myself. So I got my son to help me, got my truck and shovel and rake and lawn roller full of water, and out of my own pocket bought several loads of asphalt and fixed quite a few potholes. It was unbelievable what we did in a short while. Made the front page news, that sort of thing. And also interviewed on As It Happens for that little trick, but it wasn't part of the front. I wish it had been. I've been complaining about Boat Harbor for a long time. You've probably heard about that. And the pollution was one thing, and being lied to was one thing in my community. But the government of Canada came to our community after years of denial that we even had a problem, and they admitted playing a role in causing undue hardship and suffering. They came to our community with a compensation package, $35 million, made available not according to who suffered and how much they suffered. The compensation was made available depending on what race you were. If you're the chosen race, then you were considered deserving of respect, and everybody else in the community was led to believe and left to believe that they are considered inferior people, unworthy even of recognition as suffering human beings, suitable only for generating revenue. It's hard to believe that happened in Canada when thousands of young Canadians gave their lives that we would be free from such oppression. I went to every door I'm supposed to go to, knocked on every door, went to human rights commissions, politicians. I crossed Canada at my own expense, looking up members of Parliament, telling them this horror story and asking them to do something, all to no avail. I stood on the street with a sign demanding equal rights for all Canadians for a full 5 years, and that meant nothing. So I started disrupting elections, trying to discourage people from voting when their only choice was whom we wish to abuse us in the future. So I started taking ballot boxes and throwing them in the harbor. And government without representation is a very serious charge against democracy. When Sam Adams took the boxes of tea and threw them in the harbor, that was protesting government without representation. And government without representation led to your ballot box, your cherished democracy, your ballot box being thrown in the harbor. The difference between Sam Adams and myself, I did not wear a disguise, I did not dress up as an Indian. Everybody knew me, and I knew I was putting my freedom on the line. It was considered a joke, and there was a pretty good rumor I was going to get 5 years in prison for it. But I defended myself and got it down to 30-day house arrest and 100 hours community service and 12 months probation. But anyway, that's the kind of guy I am. I'll go to extremes and find peaceful ways of civil disobedience. If I cannot get answers, when I should get answers, I don't take no for an answer. And I will represent you and address your concerns with as much determination as I represent myself and my community. In the future, I'd like to make a prediction, but like all these guys here, all the guys, and I always said it's not so much the people we're electing as the system we are electing them into. And I predict that in the future, we will have democracy, but we will not have federal elections, and we will not have provincial elections. We will have stronger municipal elections, more councillors, not less, and out of that body, they could promote their brightest, most civic-minded people to fill the role of provincial responsibilities and federal responsibilities. That way you are electing people you know, whose reputation you know, in your own community, as opposed to electing people that you don't know, people you're only told who they are and what their character is. So I'm running as an independent. convince me that it's an issue, I will take that issue and I will address it. I will not tell you to go someplace else, like I was told so many times, trying to get answers to my questions. That's as opposed to voting for the party people who want to vote for them so that they can address the concerns and represent their party. I'm an independent. I don't owe nothing to anybody. There's no campaign funds going to me. I wouldn't accept them anyway. I don't owe no money to nobody. I only owe to the people who vote for me and elect me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexander. I don't think he was a Mackenzie. On my mom's side of the family, it's McLean. There's a little island called Rosse off the coast of Skye. Skye, of course, is absolutely beautiful, a haven and heaven for many, many people. And this little tiny island, Rosse, is a smaller version of Skye. And my mother's people came from there in the 1840s when they were thrown out, along with a lot of Mackenzies probably, and McLeods from Rosse. There's a man on that island, his name is Callum, and there's a famous road on that island called Callum's Road. He got so sick and tired of the government not fixing the roads that he built a road. And people go there now and drive their cars on it and have their pictures taken because he stood up for what he wanted, which was a road to the end of the island of Rosse. And maybe someday that little piece of asphalt that you built will become the same sort of magnet that Callum's Road has become on the Isle of Rosse. So you have forebears, I know you do, and spiritually and in other ways as well. Now we're going to hear from David Hashi from the Green Party of Canada.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Trevor, for putting this on, and thank you all for coming here tonight. It's great to see such a great turnout, and I'm delighted to be here as well. I guess I wanted to start just by introducing myself and letting you get to know me a little bit. I was born in northern New Brunswick in Bathurst, an area much like Central Nova, very resource-based economy. It had the world's largest zinc mine, which recently closed. My grandfather worked at a pulp mill, which closed in the 80s. Rich fishery and forestry, so beautiful beaches and wonderful people, an area much like Central Nova. From there, I attended Harvard and studied economics at Harvard and worked on Wall Street for 10 years. I was an equity trader, spent a couple of years in India, opened a trading office for my firm there, spent a fair bit of time traveling throughout Asia, always knowing that I would return to Atlantic Canada at some point. That time came in 2008. I moved back to Halifax and met my eventual wife there. But I longed to be a part of the community. I wanted to be a part of the solution to some of the problems that I saw facing Nova Scotia, and particularly rural Nova Scotia. And Halifax just wasn't what I was looking for. In 2010, my wife and I moved to Meadowville, just outside Scottsburn. And I saw an increasing opportunity in agriculture as a result of my travels, and I guess I've always been a little bit of a contrarian. And agriculture has been a difficult gig for decades, but I saw maybe signs of a change. And in 2010, decided to open a sheep dairy. There's a cheesemaker in Cape Breton who was trying to start an industry around cheesemaking, and he was looking for producers of sheep's milk. So there's me and one other fella in Stewiacke, a young fellow who are the forefathers of the sheep dairy industry in Nova Scotia. It's an exciting opportunity. But in moving rurally, I joined a lot of community groups. I was on the Family Board of an Arts Society. I was involved with Friends of Redtail, which is a conservation group located in Scottsburn. Started a photography club. My wife is a professional photographer. But all this involvement, I still saw significant problems in the region and the country, and they just seemed to be getting worse and worse. So I guess fast forward a couple of years to this year, with the election looming, and you know, a lot of the problems that I was seeing were specifically with the governance of this country. And I really saw a lot of short-sighted thinking, I saw a lot of systems that were broken, and I saw a lot of room for some significant positive change. And I recognized a lot of the solutions to that problem in the Green Party's platform and in what Elizabeth May was saying. You know, the Green Party is an international political organization. The Greens have ruled in Germany. We've got serving in the highest houses of government in many countries throughout the world. And their solutions tended to be very evidence-based and in consultation with experts, and you know, really agreed with a lot of my classical economic training and the way to, you know, incentivize people and save money by fixing broken systems. So I guess that brings me to standing here tonight before you. And with that being a little bit about me, I suppose I wanted to talk a little bit more about what's been going on in the election and some of the issues that we've been talking about and facing. One of my most significant concerns is that the politics of fear really seems to be poisoning Canada right now. From you know, the divisiveness of the niqab issue, which is a silly non-issue that the Supreme Court has already ruled on, but that is you know, seems to be turning the tide of an election in a really scary direction, to Syrian refugee crisis. The PMO office has just suspended the further review of any refugee applications. You know, these things are not the Canadian way. Political attack ads have been on the rise. Our politics are getting dirtier and dirtier, and it's really serving to divide Canadians, and it's serving to disenfranchise voters, and it's really a major threat to the future of our democracy. And I think we're seeing that already. You know, I think this sort of bad attitude in Ottawa is something that's really, it can really trickle down through Canadian society and can be manifested in issues of from bullying to racism to the division between rich and poor that is, you know, creating an almost class warfare that you know, I see scarily in perhaps the future of Canada. And you know, a lot of this, of course, is you know, I guess it comes down to accountability. And you know, Ottawa has been doing whatever it can to avoid being accountable to the people. You know, we've got a government right now that is more interested in listening to your phone calls than your voices. We've got whipped votes in Parliament, so we've got MPs who can't really represent you because they've got to toe the party line. You know, we're lacking proportional representation, so most of Canadians' votes are not reflected in who serves in Ottawa. We've got, you know, muzzling of scientists and a total revolt against evidence-based decision-making. There's a lot of good that can be done, and I hope to get to this in the answers to some of the questions that come up. But there's a lot of things that can do that can save Canadians a lot of money and reform a lot of our systems that are not expensive to implement. It's just, you know, it's a question of desire, and I shudder to imagine what the representation in Ottawa right now, who they're really representing. You know, the treatment of our First Nations communities, of our veterans, of our, you know, women, it's all one big mess of hyper-partisan politics. The role of the government is to take care of the people of Canada, not special interest groups and foreign corporations. And if you look at what Harper's one of his final acts as Prime Minister, well, hopefully one of his final acts as Prime Minister, was the signing of the TPP deal, which is a travesty. We really need to bring back a respect for all Canadians, get people more engaged, and work together through the various levels of government. The Green Party proposes a Council of Canadian Governments, which is a partnership between federal, provincial, municipal, and First Nations, so that, you know, the budget isn't balanced on the backs of the municipal governments, and the provincial governments get a fair shake in their health transfer payments, for instance, which is a point that is really impoverishing Nova Scotia's health care by failing to take account of the demographics of the province. I'll probably get to this as we continue through the night, but you know, one of the points that I'm going to make is that the green economy is not the enemy, it's the environment. The economy and the environment are not two separate things. You can protect the environment without hurting economic growth, and indeed, economic growth can be achieved, particularly in the context of Nova Scotia versus the West, by protecting the environment and focusing on the green economy. Harper has shown no vision, poor leadership, and economic mismanagement. I guess in closing, I'd like to say that I'd be honored to serve in Ottawa with Elizabeth May, and Green MPs, a few Green MPs can accomplish great things. I was happy to see a number of Ross's points tonight. That Thomas Mulcair has come around on the TPP, that he followed Elizabeth May's lead in the spring with Bill C-51. You've got a few more steps to take on your climate change policy and on your position on pipelines. And I'd offer the Green Party's Vision Green, which might help you get there a little bit sooner. The Green Party's the party of the future. It's the party of the closer future, perhaps, than some of the other parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. David talks about being in Meadowvale. I mean, one of the things about Meadowvale and that part of Pictou County is it's a snapshot in a way of a lot of what has happened across Canada in the rural parts. There are farms that are simply growing up now. There's land that 40, 50 years ago was worth a lot of money. People wanted to live there, families were there. People felt there was a future there, they built their futures there. And somehow we need to find that kind of place again. And it's not just Meadowvale, it's in this valley up and down. It's in the Musquodobit valley up and down, the Annapolis valley up and down. Yes, there is prosperity, but side by side with that prosperity is tremendous loss, which also translates into tremendous opportunity. And I guess that's what we're hoping our politicians and our parties and our democracy will bring to us, those kinds of opportunities. Number 4, Sean Fraser, Liberal candidate for Secretary.
This always happens. Yeah, it does. Thanks very much. Well, look, everyone, I'd like to start by just giving you a little snapshot of my background. I grew up in Miragamish, a small rural community in Pictou County. I think of the 108 or so people that lived there, even my family. It was me and 5 sisters and my parents. We grew up, I hesitate to call the farm in this part of the province. It was more of a hobby farm. There was a couple of cows, enough chickens for us to sort of grow our own eggs, a few meat birds here and there. We grew a lot of our own food, but we, like everybody else, my parents had a full-time job. We shopped at the grocery store as well. But I really appreciated my rural upbringing, and that's one of the reasons that I'm running in this election. Of the 6 kids in my family, it breaks my heart a little bit to say it. All of us had to spend time away. I spent time out west after I spent a number of months looking to live here. I got my oldest sister is a doctor in Ontario. I got another sister who's a chiropractor in Ontario. We got a school teacher in New Brunswick. We got an accountant who's just moved to Halifax, so she will be an accountant soon. And the one who's come back to Antigonish, her husband left for the Middle East because he flies in and flies out of wherever his employer sends him. This is an enormous problem, but it's also a tremendous opportunity for our part of the world. We've got not just an opportunity in the short term, but in the long term. I'm excited because the plan that our parties put forward is one where I can see this dream of turning things around on the East Coast into a reality. There's no reason our families can't be back here. There's no reason we can't be setting our roots right here in Nova Scotia. And for those of us that desperately want to stay, we should be able to. In the short term, the Liberal Party's plan is fantastic. And what I like about it, it's simple and it's honest. It's simple in the sense that what we want to do is build things and repair things that our communities need. They're going to put people back to work as well. This is the investment in infrastructure. It's a fancy way of saying we're going to build things we need anyway. The honesty behind this plan is fantastic. For the first time in my life in politics, I feel like I'm being treated like an adult when it comes to the economy. What we're saying is we're making serious investments in our community, but we're not promising you the world for free. To all things, there is a cost. We're not going to make tremendous promises about all kinds of things we're going to do, but we're going to make an investment up front, and that cost comes in the form of a short-term deficit over the first 3 years. At a time when interest rates are at the lowest rate they've been in history, this plan makes economic sense. This is something that we can not only afford to do, but that we need to do, and that we need to do right away. My dad always says, the best day to plant a tree is always today, no matter what day it is. And the same is true about investing in our communities. It's across the province, we have needs for improved roads. I took the Lake Egmont Road a couple of weeks back, and I had one of the supporters of our campaign insisted I drive through. It was not the most efficient way to go the direction I was going, but we pulled over and he said, look at this road. In the winter, it washes out to 12 feet wide. There was cables exposed underneath, and this is the main thoroughfare in this part of the province. In the town of Pictou, the drinking water is brown in certain city blocks, and they don't have adequate water treatment facilities. Every community across our province has a need that needs to be serviced urgently. At a time when we can afford to invest in our communities, we should be working on these projects. Municipalities are desperate for funding so they can improve the lives of the people in their community, and all they need is a willing partner in Ottawa. And right now, they don't have this. I spoke to the Premier of Nova Scotia not too long ago to ask him whether it would be feasible to enter into an infrastructure agreement to work out funding arrangements to see what the different municipalities need so we could serve people in our communities. And he burst out laughing and said, all we're missing is a partner in Ottawa. And the fact that the Conservative candidate wouldn't even show up tonight shows how much they care about the needs of rural communities. I have to point out the other debate that he chose to miss was in Airseg, which is the other true rural community that hosted a debate for us. And they were kind enough to bring their community out to have an opportunity for us to introduce ourselves to the community, but even more importantly, listen to some of the concerns the community raised. And this is the attitude that the current government has always taken towards the rural Maritimes. He's referred to this as a culture of defeat out here. There are lots of problems I have with the Harper government between their approach to decision-based evidence-making as opposed to evidence-based decision-making, their record on the environment, the willingness to make decisions behind closed doors without engaging people and without engaging local representatives. But what really irks me is the fact that we have potential in rural Nova Scotia that we are not capitalizing on, and we don't have anyone who's going to listen to us. In the long term, I think as a region, we need to look beyond a simple investment in infrastructure, which is going to be a fantastic start. But we need to get together, and this isn't going to come from government alone. We need to get together as a region and say, what do we have here that we can build a future on? And I look around and I see we have the raw ingredients that we need to have a booming economy in rural Nova Scotia. When I spent some time overseas studying, I lived in the Netherlands for a while. Tremendous agriculture industry. Half of that country is supposed to be underwater, and there is not a square inch of that nation that isn't producing something. It's a tremendous model that we could be looking at here. We have so much unused land in Nova Scotia. We have so much unmanaged forests in Nova Scotia, and we have tremendously mismanaged fisheries in Nova Scotia. These are 3 renewable industries that create new wealth from the ground. It's almost like magic. We have all the ingredients there, and all we need is to start the conversation now. We can build a future in rural Nova Scotia that's not only going to serve the people that live here now, but it's going to provide an opportunity for those who've had to go away to come back home. What I'm looking forward to most is being a representative for this area in Ottawa, and not a representative for Ottawa in Nova Scotia. I couldn't be more excited about the chance to do good work in my home community and region. It's a fantastic time because there is a growing anti-Harper sentiment across our region, and I know we can make a difference. As sweet as it would be to help see him out of the Prime Minister's office, the real reward would be doing good work in the communities that help make me the person that I am now, and helping repay the debt that I owe to rural Nova Scotia. So thank you very much. I ask that on October 19th, that instead of, that we take the opportunity not just to make a point with our vote, but to actually take this opportunity to make a difference. We are very close to toppling the Conservatives in this stronghold, and we can do it, but we need everyone's help in this room and across the region. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sean. What I've decided to do is just sort of extend the order. So what we're going to do now is I've got 3 questions. We'll deal with them one at a time, and I'm simply going to just roll through the order. So the first speaker spoke 1, 2, 3, 4. So this round will be 2, 3, 4, 1, and so on. So it'll be a slightly different sequence all the way through. And then when we get to the question and answer part, I don't know what I'll do, but we'll try and get everybody involved in a fair way. And again, just remember that these are 2 minutes, and we are going to be quite strict about this. Yep. So Bart, get on that clock. And if there is a point of privilege, I'll just put it out. If you feel there's a point you need to make a point of privilege, just signal me, and then we'll go to that. But I'd like to keep them out. I don't want to debate so much at this point, but if that happens, that happens. So the first question is this, and I don't know whether you've been given the exact wording, but you won't have any trouble with this one. I don't think with any of them, as a matter of fact. Hopefully we will be informed. Given the Government of Canada has recently signed a Trans-Pacific Partnership, which allows for agricultural imports, will you ensure that the Trans-Pacific Partnership contains requirements for all agricultural imports to meet the quality standards to which Canadian agricultural producers must adhere? And furthermore, will you ensure that all imports be clearly identified as imported from whatever country they're coming from? And that is simply known to us in the farming industry as country of origin labeling. So you're asked for a comment on the TPP generally and a specific comment on country of origin labeling. And we'll begin with Alexander.
Thank you very much. The more we make rules, the more things are the same, as I see it. It just seems strange to me. I don't know how to handle that question, but I had it figured out, but I don't know. I'll just pass on that one. As long as everybody's treated equal, that's my main thing. If you're going to make rules, make them the same for everybody. Don't make them for this people, not for those people. That's what's not acceptable.
David?
Well, I guess it's my understanding that while the TTP has been agreed to in principle, it has yet to be ratified and will be put before Parliament when it reconvenes. I could be mistaken on that, but that's my understanding of the status of the TPP. There's certainly been some noise out of the States. Hillary Clinton has come out against TPP. And Elizabeth May was against this from the beginning. As the Green Party, and she and I are firmly against the Foreign Investor Protection Act that was signed with China this spring, and NAFTA also has, Canada's been the subject of more NAFTA lawsuits than any other country to the tune of billions of dollars. It sells our sovereignty, the ability to control our food, to control our industries, to protect industries that are worth growing. For instance, as a small dairy farmer, the cheesemaker who I would be working with, developing this great industry that represents a great opportunity for Nova Scotia. I really view the artisanal cheese industry in Nova Scotia as being where the wine and beer industries were 5 to 10 years ago. A real opportunity. But European cheese is $12 a kilogram, and he's getting $45 a kilogram. You can't compete with agricultural imports that are subsidized in a different manner. I mean, these are not unsubsidized imports from Europe. These are subsidized, in their own way, that just fall outside of the confines of some of these trade deals. Regarding food safety, these trade deals really scare me. Sure, we're only allowing in 3.25% of our milk production, and there's supposed to be an OBHG in the imported milk. But when you open the door to foreign corporations having some say in Canada legislating its own environmental and food safety laws, you open the door to a flood of real difficulties and issues that really can end up harming Canadians. So I say no to all these trade deals, period.
Thank you. Sean?
We've entered into an era of international trade. I don't think that in and of itself is necessarily a bad thing. I find that with these deals, you're typically at the table or you're on the table. And the problem that I have is with the details. And Stephen Harper screwed this one up when he put supply management on the table. One of the things that I find most off-putting about it is that our last debate, a similar question came up, and the Conservative candidate suggested that the media leaks about them putting supply management on the table were false. Lo and behold, we come to a candidate's debate in a rural area and he's nowhere to be seen. I find it mind-boggling that he's not here tonight when there's an issue of such importance that he took such a stance on the other side of this riding. With export industries, you do typically see a higher wage rate, so I don't think it's a terrible thing that and it's usually a 50% higher wage rate, but I don't think it's a terrible thing across the board. But by putting supply management on the table, we've had a serious impact on rural life in Nova Scotia. When the Trans-Pacific Partnership was first rumored to be conceding portion of supply management, I got 5 or 6 calls from dairy farmers, mostly in this part of the province. And what we did is we came down and just at the church a couple blocks from here, we hosted a candidates forum. And I know a little bit about this stuff, but what I did, because I'm not a rural expert, is I brought the most knowledgeable guy I know, Mark Eichen. He's a former parliamentary secretary of the Minister of International Trade, and he's the agriculture critic for our party, who's himself a successful farmer in Cape Breton. What we wanted to do was come give you our thoughts, but more importantly, learn from this community how you would be impacted by it. And I think it was Mr. Dillman who was in the room that day, and he made a fantastic point. He said, one of the things that you're not realizing is that it's not just about farmers' rights. This is about a rural way of life. This is about the pride we take in producing food locally from St. John's, Newfoundland, to Vancouver Island. When you're not at the end of the supply chain, you control your own fate. We're out of time, I'm sorry.
Your fate is controlled.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is a critical issue for us, and it's a time that we need to really give some deep thought and consultation on a wide range and ensuring that the communities across Canada are involved and people that are affected. The TPP will affect things such as pharmaceutical. It will drive up the potential cost, make it harder to get generic drugs, just as an example. I stated in my opening statement earlier about the quality of products, and it goes to the quality question that you have here. We, as a country, may not necessarily have a say. If we put rules in or laws in that deal with our environmental concerns, and they restrict the company from making a profit, we could be taken to court and held to pay the difference in that profit. It's that type of impact from the corporate agenda that will severely affect our rural communities. There is an opportunity in rural Nova Scotia if we allow our dairy services to grow, to allow the niche marketing. As I travel around this area, the outdoor markets, the weekend markets are a vibrant, sustainable, economic entity. And if we can work the rural farm, invest $100 each, if we did something as simple as that, we will create millions of dollars of circulating money and hundreds of jobs. And so what this deal potentially will do is restrict the freedom of the family farm to be passed on. The corporate farm, I think that there'll be farms here, but the land is rich and would be taken over by corporations. Yes, the Conservative government has offered some compensation, but I think what they're doing is trying to buy this level of farmer at this time and allow them to go into retirement. It doesn't open the door for our young families that we depend on to rejuvenate and give life to our communities so we can sustain ourselves. We need immigration to come in. We have opportunity because we have a wide range of vacant properties that can be re-inhabited, and we can bring life by allowing the niche market to grow. And if this deal goes through as we hear it today. The other thing is, he doesn't have a mandate.
No other thing. Yeah, I'm sure there are, but not in 2 minutes. Okay, we're going to move on to question 2. Thank you very much for that. Oh, I'm sorry, David.
I just wanted to, I guess, offer a supporting statistic for Ross's comments that, the $4.6 billion that's been allocated to support the dairy industry paid out over 15 years by the Harper government represents only 16 cents on the dollar of your value of quota. And, dairy farmers can't survive that.
Thank you. Question 2. I'll just preface this by saying that age is a matter of mind. Nobody in this room is aging. Given the aging population in Nova Scotia and the reduction in Canada Health transfers in recent years, what specifically will you do to ensure that provinces with older populations are not financially disadvantaged and that citizens in those provinces have access to appropriate health care? Let me begin with David Hashi.
Thank you. Well, I think the time has got to come to start and tie federal transfer payments to the demographics of the population. Nova Scotia is the oldest in Canada, and we're just getting a fractional share of what we need for our healthcare systems. And I think the closing of the mental health unit in Victo is an excellent example of that. We're having a difficult time attracting and retaining our staff, which are vital to our rural areas. And I think seniors are feeling this most acutely. We've got to do a lot more to support our seniors, including programs that allow them to stay in their homes for longer. Then it's much more expensive to have seniors in acute care facilities. But if we can facilitate allowing them to remain in their homes and communities, that's a significant cost savings and a wise investment of federal dollars. The other thing that would be an excellent investment would be a national pharmacare plan. Canada is the only modern democracy with universal health care that doesn't also have a pharmaceutical plan. It would cost around $1 billion to implement, which is a fair chunk of change, but the annual savings are $10 billion. And these are real savings. Instead of forcing the provinces to go out and negotiate purchase of the pharmaceuticals individually, they have no economies of scale. With a national pharmaceutical plan, we can recognize economies of scale. We can make better deals with the drug companies. There's now 2.5 drug reps for every doctor in Canada, and I think that should tell you where the power lies in Canada. I've run out of time. Thanks. But you were just laughing. So a pharmacare plan would be key. Drug care costs are one of the fastest rising costs of our medical system, and a pharmacare plan would help put a cap on those costs. And it's just a smart investment that can be made federally, among many smart investments that the federal government hasn't been making. Thanks.
Sean Fraser.
So one of the reasons that this question is particularly apt in Nova Scotia is that we are the province with more seniors per capita than any other province. Due to the expiry of the prior Canada Health Accord, which the Conservative government had 10 years to plan for, we're going to be left with a funding formula that funds the provinces based on the number of people in each province, rather than the cost of providing care. Provinces like Nova Scotia are going to end up at the short end of the stick because as you age, your healthcare costs go up. One of the things that the Liberal Party is committed to doing is sitting down with the premiers of each province to reach a cross-country accord so we can establish a new funding formula that reflects the cost of care. This is incredibly important and the time is of the essence because our population is not just the oldest, but it's getting older by the day. In addition to reaching a new agreement, we're going to reverse cuts to the Canada Institute of Health Research and restore the long-form census. So we understand exactly what's going on and we understand how we can more efficiently allocate the shrinking pie to take care of our larger population. We're also going to be investing $3 billion to improve in-home care in Nova Scotia, and as part of the investment in infrastructure, which is the largest in Canadian history, we're going to be focusing on projects like seniors facilities and nursing homes. Within home care and nursing homes, you can provide appropriate care at a fraction of the price. The last stat I heard was about 1/8 of the cost to take care of a senior in a nursing home rather than having them in a hospital bed. This isn't just going to free up resources, but it's going to free up hospital beds that are currently being taken up by people who could receive the care that they need in a nursing home. But without the information from groups like the Canada Institute of Health Research and without information that we get from the long-form census, it's going to be hard to make these kinds of decisions. We're also going to be putting in a chief science officer whose part of their role is going to be making sure